Have you ever thought of killing your own mother? Well, someone else did. What was the motive of killing his own family with cold blood? Do you think that the closest people to you can push you to commit such a cruel crime? If you wanna know what happened, stay tuned, because today we're going to talk about the intelligent hunter Edmund Kemper. Before we start, make sure to subscribe and hit that bell to turn on notifications. Ed Kemper, the American serial killer, rapist and necrophile, committed a bunch of crime series and was nicknamed the Co-ed Killer, as most of his victims were female college students. Kemper was so likable indeed. No one in his life could have imagined that he could have done this, or that he would finally turn his rage on his own mother. No one in Kemper's life ever got any bad vibes, and he didn't show any signs that there was anything wrong. He actually had a genius IQ. He covered his tracks so thoroughly that he would have never been caught, and he was the kind of person you could imagine having a fascinating conversation with over a cup of coffee. Edmund Kemper was born in Burbank, California on December 18, 1948. He was the middle child and only son born to Clarnell Elizabeth Kemper and Edmund Emil Kemper II. Kemper's parents got separated in 1957 when his father, whom he was named after, moved out. Ed moved with his mother and sisters to Montana shortly afterward. Kemper had a difficult relationship with his alcoholic mother, as she was very critical of him. She was a neurotic domineering who frequently belittled, humiliated, and abused him. Edmund blamed her for all his problems. He claimed that she locked him in the basement of their home at night because she feared he would harm his two sisters. She repeatedly mocked him for his large size. He stood 6 feet 4 inches by the age of 15 and ridiculed him as a real weirdo. She also declined to show him kindness out of fear that she would turn him gay, and told the young Kemper that he reminded her of his father and no woman would ever love him. Kemper later portrayed her as a sick, angry woman, and it has been presumed that she suffered from a borderline personality disorder. Signs of trouble began to emerge early. Kemper had a dark fantasy life, sometimes dreaming about killing his mother. He cut off the head of his sister's dolls and even forced the girls into playing a game he called Gas Chamber, in which he had them blindfold them and guide them to a chair where he assumed to suffer in pain till he died. Furthermore, he exhibited antisocial behavior such as cruelty to animals. At the age of 10, he buried a pet cat alive. Once it died, he dug it up and fixed its head on a spike. Kemper later declared that he received satisfaction from strongly lying to his family about the killing of the cat. At the age of 13, he killed another family cat. He slaughtered it with a knife and kept the remains of one in his closet until his mother found out and sent him to his father's house. But he was sent back again to his mother, who decided to send the troubled teenager to live with his paternal grandparents in North Fork, California. It seems like nobody liked Edmund, as if they all hated him for some reason. When Ed went to live with his grandparents, he hated his life there. He used to call his grandfather feeble, and said that his grandmother was regularly wakening both himself and his grandfather. He started learning about pistols, but his grandparents took away his rifle after he killed several birds and other small animals. Later on, criminal thoughts came up to his mind to an extraordinary extent. On the afternoon of August 27, 1964, he shot and killed his grandmother in the kitchen after an argument, and later on the same day, he killed his grandfather too in the driveway when he came home. Kemper turned himself into the police and was sent to a unit at a state hospital for the criminally insane. Despite his actions, Kemper was a very intellectual individual. While there, he received an IQ score of 145, noting that the average IQ in the States was 98. In an interview with Kemper, they asked him why he killed his grandparents. He said he just wanted to know what it felt like to kill grandma, and claimed that he killed his grandfather so he wouldn't find out that his wife was dead. Psychiatrist Donald Lund, who examined Kemper at length through adulthood, wrote, "In his way, He had always wanted to inflict harm in return for both his father and his mother. Kemper's crimes were considered incomprehensible for a 15-year-old to commit, and court therapists diagnosed him with a paranoid schizophrenic. Then he was sent to Atascadero State Hospital, where he befriended his psychologist and even became his companion. He was clever enough to gain the trust of the doctor to the degree of being permitted entrance to prisoners' tests. He finally was able to impress his doctor at the hospital enough to let him go. In 1969, Kemper was released from the hospital at the age of 21 with a clean mental health record, meaning that he was no longer required to return for further monitoring. Kemper was a free man, and despite his prison doctor's recommendation that he should not live with his mother because of her past abuse and the trauma she caused him, he didn't care and rejoined her in Santa Cruz, California. Where he attended community college, Eddie had aspirations of becoming a police officer but was rejected. Still, he didn't lose hope. During the same year, he started working for the highway department. Kemper was hit by a car while out on his motorbike. His arm was severely wounded, and he received a $15,000 agreement in the civil lawsuit he filed on the car's driver. Kemper was feeling weak. Because of his arm, he couldn't go back to work. He couldn't interact with women, which made him feel more isolated. Therefore, he turned his mind toward other pursuits that would empower him into becoming more effective. He noticed a large number of young women hitchhiking in the area while cruising in his new car, which he purchased with some of the money that he gained from his contracts. Kemper started collecting the tools he thought he may need to satisfy his criminal desires, including a gun, a knife, and handcuffs. He then started picking up young women and calmly letting them go. According to Kemper, he picked up around 150 hitchhikers before he felt homicidal. He eventually had to leave his apartment and move back in with his mother, who had been separated a total of 3 times by that point. On May 7, 1972, he committed 2 murders, which profoundly impacted his behavior, inspiring him to kill 4 more women, and most of those crimes were committed after an argument with his mother. Anyway, Edmund would pick up female students who were hitchhiking and take them to isolated areas where he would shoot, stab, smother, or strangle them. He would then take the bodies back to his home, where he decapitated them, had sexual intercourse with their bodies, and then ended up cutting the corpses. On the night of September 14, 1972, Kemper picked up a 15-year-old dance senior named Aikoku, who had insisted on going to her dance class in spite of missing her bus. As usual, he drove to a distant area where he executed his murders, choked the girl until she lost her consciousness, raped her, and eventually killed her. Afterward, Kemper pulled Ku's body into the trunk of his car and went to a nearby bar to have a few drinks, then returned to his apartment. He had sexual intercourse with the corpse, then dismembered and similarly disposed of the remains as his previous 2 victims. Ku's mother called the police to report the disappearance of her daughter and put up hundreds of flyers asking for information, but she did not receive any answers. In January 1973, Kemper proceeded to act on his criminal thoughts through picking up hitchhiker Cindy Scholl, whom he shot and killed. He took advantage of the fact that his mother was out to hide Scholl's body in his room. He divided her remains there the next day and threw the pieces into the ocean. He buried her head in his mother's backyard. On a Friday night 1973, Kemper committed his last 2 crimes. His mother came back from a party. She was pretty much drunk, which made their conversation take an unpleasant course and ended up having an argument. Ed waited for his mother to fall asleep and hit her with a claw hammer and slit her throat with a knife, and just as he did to the other victims, he executed her and cut off her hands. He also removed her larynx and put it down the garbage disposal. Kemper then hid his mother's corpse in a closet and went to drink at a nearby bar. When the murder didn't satisfy his homicidal needs, he invited over Sally Hallett, a friend of his mother, When she arrived, Kemper suffocated her to death. Afterward, Kemper fled to California and reached Pueblo, Colorado, taking coffee and pills to stay awake for over 1,000-mile journey. When he didn't hear about the murder of his mom and her friend on the news, he called the police and confessed to murdering them both. Although Kemper verbally confessed to the murders, the police did not take his call seriously and told him to call back at a later time. Ironically, a few hours later, Kemper called again, asking to speak to an officer he personally knew, informing him of the tiny details of his Monterey's killings. And just like that, he stood waiting for the police to arrive and take him into custody, where he also admitted the killing of the students in May 1973. Kemper was indicted on 8 counts of first-degree murder, as well as being deemed legally sane by 3 court-appointed psychiatrists who examined him. His trial was in November 1973, in which the jury declared him sane and guilty on all counts. Kemper requested the death penalty but was sentenced to life in prison because of a U.S. Supreme Court's moratorium. When questioned in an interview as to why he killed those girls, he explained, "My frustration, my inability to communicate socially, sexually, I wasn't impotent. But emotionally, I was impotent. I was scared to death of failing and male-female relationships. I knew absolutely nothing about that whole area. Even if just sitting down and talking with a young lady, I need to be able to really communicate, and ironically enough, that's why I began picking people up. And I'm picking up young women, and I'm going a little farther. Each time, it's a daring kind of a thing." They also asked him about the reason why he killed his mother. He said that he knew a week before she died, he was gonna kill her. She went out to a party, she got sauced, she came home alone. He asked her how her evening went. She just looked at him and said, "For 7 years, I haven't had sex with a man because of you, my murderer's son." So he just got a claw hammer and beat her to death. Then he cut her head off and humiliated her, and then he said, "There, now you have had sex. If there's one thing he knows, it's a mother should not scorn her own son. If a woman humiliates her little boy, he will become hostile, violent, and debased, period." It seems like Ed Kemper's anger began early. When he was separated from his father, he laid the full blame for that on his mother. Although she had expressed concern about the lack of a father figure in his life, therefore, the early damage and misery of his home becomes a motivating force later for seeking revenge against those who had hurt him. The bad treatment of his mother made him more cruel. In this case, Edmund is the victim of his own mother. His relationship with her is what made him this way. Edmund had a love of control and domination of others. He's mostly just a loner that can't make long relationships with others, so he uses serial killing as a way of having a one-night stand where he rapes women, then kill them and destroy evidence. Dump their body by the side of the road, then go on to the next because he is incapable of a sustained romantic inmate relationship. If you liked the video, let us know your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss more videos of the most interesting stories and much more. Take care.